The NHL desperately wants to hand out the Stanley Cup this year, and the eternal optimist still feels that could very well happen. To discuss that, let's bring in our hockey insider, Darren Dreger. Darren, if this does indeed drag out, is there a date that the NHL has in mind as an official cutoff where it would just be too late to really crown a Stanley Cup champion this season?
Not yet, Gino. Not to say that they haven't discussed that, or at some point in the foreseeable future, they do have to identify a break date, if you will, that wipes out the season. But that's too far down the road to speculate on now, both from an NHL perspective and, we had Don Fear, the executive director of the National Hockey League Players Association, on the Ray and Dregs Hockey podcast, and even he confirmed that there have been some discussions, but they're vague discussions now. There is no date X, if you will, because the focus is singularly on just helping the players and the clubs manage through the current process. So at some point, if the pause or suspension isn't lifted in the next few weeks, the next month, obviously the Players Association and the National Hockey League are going to have to take a deeper look, and undoubtedly they will continue to have these internal discussions, but there is nothing solid on that front just yet.
Darren, in a perfect world, maybe a little overly optimistic, play resumes in time to complete some of the regular season. If not, in the NHL, as they jump right into the playoffs, the question then becomes who gets in and what kind of a playoff format could you use?
Well, look, imagine in the That's Hockey office the conversations that we're going to have in a very speculative form in talking about the creative ideas that we might have in terms of, what a postseason format might look like for the National Hockey League. Well, executive groups around the National Hockey League are being creative, and they're doing that right now. There's no ask from the NHL to present your ideas. There might be a few that are being, sent towards the commissioner's office in the future, but not immediately. But there are some creative ideas that are being tossed around. So I'm going to throw out a couple. Maybe, again, the pause is lifted in the near future, in a month or less. Well, perhaps you can then play some meaningful regular season games, and you can adhere to a 16-team standard playoff formula. Otherwise, I had a team suggest to me, well, if you have to cap off the regular season, maybe you move the playoff line down a little bit and you change 16 playoff teams to 24 playoff teams, which would be music to the ears of those teams who are on the outside looking in. And how about this one for a wild but very creative scenario, Gino? I had another team suggest, why not have a Stanley Cup playoff tournament where all 31 teams qualify? My brain doesn't calculate what that would look like or how that might work, but I think at this stage it's fodder for conversation, and perhaps the National Hockey League and the Players Association are going to have to look at something like that down the road. But for the moment, it's all just conjecture and creativity. That's it.
There's a lot of discussion going on right now. The last time, of course, the Stanley Cup was not awarded due to health reasons. That was 101 years ago, the Spanish flu of 1918, which meant no Stanley Cup winner in 1919.